TMNT has finally arrived, and with it came over 100 new commanders to build, but there's one turtle that can absolutely demolish your bracket 3 games for just 50 bucks and leave your opponents stunned every time. It just so happens he's my favorite turtle, but I promise I'm not biased. The strongest commander from TMNT isn't Mikey, Raph, or Leo. Nah, it's Donatello. Donatello, Mutant Mechanic, costs 3 and a blue for a 3/5 Mutant Ninja Turtle with 2 abilities. You can tap him to put 3+1/+1 counters on target artifact you control, and if it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. And my favorite part, whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target artifact or creature you control. So basically we have an Ozolith in the command zone specifically for dying artifacts instead of creatures. That alone should foreshadow the true value of this ability, but it actually gets a bit deeper than that. In my opinion, this effect is actually better than Ozolith, and here's why. Ozolith says whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. Then, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. See, this has several limiters that prevent you from doing anything other than a simple counter transfer once on each of your combats. The Ozolith serves as a middleman that then dumps all or nothing onto a single target all at once. Donnie, however, skips the middleman altogether. When something dies, its counters are immediately put back to good use, and this effect can happen at instant speed on any turn as many times as you want. Now you can start to see the value here. With just a sacrifice outlet, we unlock combat tricks, combo lines, and absurd abuses of our resources, because not only does this move the +1/+1 counters Donnie makes, but artifacts are known for another kind of counter, but we'll get to that in a second. First, let's see what we can do with our +1s. There are a number of ways to stack +1/+1 counters fast with wide distributors and proliferation, or using untappers on Donnie for 6+ counters a turn. These untappers are especially sweet since we can turn them on our artifact ramp for explosive bursts in mana. That, combined with our evasive bodies, gives us an excellent baseline to threaten opposing life totals and give us valuable blockers for our late game setup. But it doesn't stop there. Enter Modular. A permanent with Modular enters the battlefield with a certain amount of counters and has, when it dies, you may put its +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature. But this is where things get a little weird. Let's say we have an Arcbound worker with 7 +1/+1 counters and Donatello on the battlefield. If we sacrifice it to our Thermal Navigator's ability to give it flying, not only will we put 7 +1/+1 counters on our Navigator from Modular, but with Donnie's second ability, we actually get to put an additional 7 counters on whatever artifact or creature we want. In other words, when a creature with Modular dies, we can effectively double the counters it puts on a creature we control. Our Navigator would instead be pumped to a 16/16 flyer from 1 sacrifice. Needless to say, we have some Modular in the list. Thermal Navigator isn't our only sack outlet, of course, but oddly, it's the only free sack outlet that we run. That's because every other mode of sacrificing we have actually generates us more value. Smelting Vat, Scrapyard Recombiner, and Repurposing Bay all fetch artifacts straight from our library. Radiant Lotus gives us a ton of mana, Throne of Geth proliferates, and Sai and Sage of Nat Lam offer us card draw. You notice that most of these give us card advantage, and that's because alongside building a big threatening board, we're also trying to dig through our library for another very important synergy. It's time to talk about charge counters. Charge counters are actually riddled across all sorts of artifacts, and in this deck they actually play an extremely powerful role. Since we can use a sack outlet with Donnie to easily move counters, our charge counter stuff is broken up into 2 categories: absolutely busted charge counter generation, along with cracked charge counter payoffs. In the generation slot, we have Chimeric Egg, Angel Heart Vial, Geometric Nexus, and a handful of useful spacecraft, which all can easily get 10+ counters on a turn with their station abilities. Once you let one of these charge up, you can move their counters from payoff to create these wild chains of value. Eternity Elevator, Astral Cornucopia, Everflowing Chalice, Empowered Autogenerator, and Shrine of Boundless Growth all give us mana for each counter, and Shrine of Boundless Growth is especially nasty since it actually sacrifices itself to help move the counters along to the next target. Besides mana, our payoffs also offer us token generation, removal, and most importantly, card advantage. Insight Engine in particular is a key combo piece that helps us find our most effective win con, Darksteel Reactor. Since Darksteel Reactor's win clause is a triggered ability, there's basically nothing your opponents can do to stop you from winning once you reach 20 counters. Even if they somehow exile it in response, it'll already be too late. And on a funny side note, if one of them can't lose the game actually becomes a draw unless someone can break the cycle at instant speed. Now that we have a better look at what the deck is trying to do, I'd like to revisit our untappers again, because besides untapping Donnie and Gilded Lotus, we can actually see that they give us way more options with all the charge counter stuff and sack outlets as well. Probably my favorite card in this list is Repurposing Bay, since we have a healthy mix of combo pieces at each mana value, or we can fetch Reactor when we think we're ready to win. But if we have an untapper, our options are made even more accessible. One particularly nasty target to find is Filigree Sages, which when combined with our charge counter rocks gives us infinite mana and infinite artifact untaps, which can easily win the game. Repurposing Bay and Insight Engine are the two driving reasons why Trophy Mage is so goated in this deck, but alongside those, we have 13 other artifacts we can tutor up, including a sack outlet, counter amplifiers, removal, charge counter generation, charge counter chaos, and a sneaky little Mimic Vat which can actually exile our dying artifacts to clone them later even if they aren't creatures anymore. In one test, I sacrificed an animated Radiant Lotus with my Smelting Vat to find more pieces, then exiled the Lotus under the Mimic Vat so I could keep making them every turn and sacrificing them to dig deeper. This deck, like many artifact lists you'll see, is full of random synergies like that, which make you suddenly kick into overdrive. Also low-key, this type of deck already has a name. It's actually called a Dice Factory deck. I just think Donatello might be the best Dice Factory commander we've ever seen, so if anyone asks you what you would call it, just say it's Donnie's Dice Factory. And if you see anybody putting me on blast pointing this out in the comments, just hit him with, oh god, just hit him with the old, so you didn't watch to the end, huh bud? And I'll like your comment every time. Other than that, I think I've covered just about everything I can think of. This deck is just such a blast to play, and while the win conditions are fairly straightforward, the path to get there is always different every game, which makes for an extremely exciting and replayable deck. As always, I'll leave a link in the description if y'all want to test it out and maybe even buy it for yourself. Just watch out because the maybe board is full of upgrades I would consider sliding in if you want to bump up your budget a bit more. I'm thinking of turning this into a recurring series whenever a new set comes out where I try making a $50 budget bracket 3 list with a new commander each time. So let me know in the comments if you like this video and you want to see more in the future, and subscribe to get notified. And if you liked it, you'll definitely like my last one around Ashling Rekindled. Oh yeah, also Void Monster just announced the next drop and it's JoJo themed, which I am absolutely pumped for. So maybe look out for a sponsorship in the next video for that bad boy, but either way, check them out. They have some seriously awesome stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.